これくれ。ゲットしていいかな。
Hey everyone, it's Mark! I missed last week, so this is my recap for Pokémon Horizons episodes 104, Charcadet's Wish, and episode 105, A Storm, followed by Surfing Gholdengo. These were the 1,336th and 1,337th episodes of the Pokemon anime, and we got a ton of Amethio content. Let's break down both of these episodes. We kick things off with a short opening scene of some random island. Amethio and Ceruledge are there setting up camp, and Amethio basically looks like he's been living alone on this island by himself for the past year, away from civilization. We'll get back to him later, but for now we shift our focus to Ligo, who's gone with Zerk and Onia to Amethio's house. They explain that Cervantes, Amethio's father, has allowed them to use this house and wants them to keep looking for his son. Once inside, Zerk and Onia tell Ligo about how the explorers are run differently now that Spinel is in charge, and how Hamber asked them to keep searching for Amethio because he's the only one who can oppose Spinel. They ask Ligo if she has any idea where Amethio is, which of course she has no idea, but Onia says that Amethio approved of her, so maybe she can think of something. Like, if she was Amethio, where would they go? Ligo tries to think, but gets interrupted by Charcadet, who has taken an interest in the family photos of Amethio, particularly the ones including Amethio's own Charcadet back before it evolved into Ceruledge. Ligo also notices the same woman from the painting in the entrance to the house, which is Amethio's mother. All of this leads Ligo to ask where these photos were taken, and considering this place looks exactly like the island we saw Amethio on at the beginning of the episode, I think we're onto something here. We cut away to an Exceed factory, and we have no clue where this is or what's going on here, but I did think it was funny that all the boxes just looked empty to me, so I don't know if they're supposed to be strong sphere parts or what, but anyways, this is where Cervantes is working now since Spinel ousted him as Exceed's director. He's on the phone with Zerk and Onia, telling them about how he took those pictures of Amethio when they went on vacation, and he's about to send them to the location when he gets interrupted by Spinel, of all people, who walks straight to his office to say hi. The conversation goes nowhere, and as Spinel goes to leave, Cervantes tries asking about strong spheres, but Spinel just tells him not to worry about it. He ends up sending the location of the island to the others, and apparently this is just off the coast of Levincia. If that's the case, how in the world did Zerk and Onia not look there yet? This must be a pretty remote island. It also just so happens to be the place where Amethio met his Charcadet, so they go off this lead and set sail for the island. On the way, Meowscarada gets hungry, which causes Onia to spring into action as she hands over some special cat Pokemon food. Meowscarada digs in while Onia is in Dreamland. I had actually totally forgotten about the character trait that Onia loved Sprigatito and thought it was adorable, so I was glad to see this moment bring it up again. Ligo asks how these two met Amethio in the first place, and we flash back to their first day as members of the Explorers. Hamber assigned them to assist Amethio, and at first, they just saw this as an opportunity to get in good with an important member of the organization, and an easy track to promotion. They eventually grew to respect Amethio while working alongside him, and they all became friends. They want to repay his loyalty to them by continuing to search for Amethio, and this search extends into the nighttime as Amethio and Ceruledge sit by a fire. Very conveniently, Amethio just so happens to be reminiscing about the past year since the incident at Laqua. Once his squad escaped from Spinel and the others, he told Zerk and Onia to go back to the Explorers without him because he just wanted to be alone. He could have just walked around freely though, as he eventually found himself being hunted down by Explorers agents that Spinel had sent after him. Amethio actually ended up hijacking a submarine and used that to travel to this island, where he and his Pokemon have been hiding out for the past year. He's still not over the fact that he couldn't save his grandfather, and he remembers the last words he told him before he passed on. Amethio may remember the words, but he's lost on how to actually achieve them. He laments the fact that he's all alone now with no one to help him. But then he thinks back to meeting Charcadet here back in the day and how his mother told Charcadet to grow up and protect Amethio. I guess he could say he's never really alone because he's always got Ceruledge with him. Then there's a moment where I think he imagines his mother's ghost being by his side, but I don't know, maybe he's just hallucinating after being out here for a year. He snaps out of it when he sees a light approaching from the ocean, and at first he thinks he's in danger before he sees Ligo waving at him from the boat. Zerk and Onia can't believe they finally found him, and in their excitement end up crashing the boat directly into the island. Fantastic. I thought this was really funny, but also shows how overcome with emotion they were to see Amethio again, and I think those feelings were returned given that I have never seen Amethio react this way to anything ever. Once everyone's back in one piece, they all sit around the campfire and catch up. Ligo's Charcadet says hello to Amethio's Ceruledge, and Ligo explains to him that Charcadet asked to join her team and that had promised to protect her. Zerk and Onya cut this off by begging Amethio to come back to Exceed and the Explorers, because right now Spinel is in complete control and running everything. What really shocks Amethio is when Liko explains to him that all the Lockbiome hasn't been destroyed and that Spinel is using it to create strong spheres. Amethio is disgusted by this, but says he can't do anything. He mopes about the same stuff he was thinking about earlier and that he's powerless now. Liko challenges him and asks if he's just going to quit in the same exact way that Amethio spoke to her back when they got trapped on Glaciato Mountain. Liko uses his own words against him, and Amethio just silently stares back at her in response. Before he can speak, Charcadet jumps in and starts gesturing at Ceruledge. It knocks Charcadet down in response, but Liko's Pokemon is fired up, and she can tell it wants to battle. Amethio doesn't see the point since Ceruledge would demolish it, but Liko and Charcadet won't back down and keep challenging them to a battle. Amethio finally agrees, but knows the result is not in question. The battle starts pretty one-sided, with Ceruledge brushing off any long-distance attacks Charcadet tries, and then fires off a flurry of Psycho Cuts to keep Charcadet from getting close to it. Liko changes her strategy by using Clear Smog, which creates a cloud of smoke around Ceruledge so it can't see Charcadet coming. This still doesn't work, with Ceruledge taking to the shadows thanks to Phantom Force, and this battle may as well already be over. Amethio says as much, telling Liko to just recall Charcadet to its Pokeball. That won't be happening, as Charcadet refuses to stay down and squares up to Ceruledge again. Liko passionately exclaims that Charcadet will never give up, and they charge in for another attack. Amethio calls for another Psycho Cut, but this time, things go differently. Charcadet doesn't slow down and ends up sliding underneath this attack while keeping its momentum, and now it's right next to Ceruledge and it fires up a rather dramatic looking Ember. I thought this looked very cool, although it still probably did like no damage to Ceruledge. Amethio says landing one hit isn't something to celebrate, but then he notices that Ceruledge is fired up too, with the flame in its eye shining brighter than normal. They go on the offensive this time, and Ceruledge just smacks the bejesus out of Charcadet with a Shadow Claw, and that's the match. Liko congratulates Charcadet on a battle well fought, and Amethio jumps in to tell them, "I told you so." Liko thanks him for the battle, saying that Charcadet wanted to face Ceruledge and she didn't want to let it down. She says that they'll be even stronger next time, and Amethio is blown away by this. He thinks more about this lesson he's learned about not giving up, and then turns to Zerk and Onya. He tells them that he can't go with them because they're still explorers and can work from the inside. He's going to help too, but first he's got to figure out something that he can do. His friends are overjoyed to hear this, and then Zerk hands him the Zygarde cube they got from Hamber. They explain what it is, and Amethio takes it, realizing that he can help collect his grandfather's Zygarde. Liko pipes up and says that even though they walk different paths, she believes in the one Amethio chooses. He just nods in response, and that's the end of this scene. We cut to Zerk and Onya reporting their findings to Hamber, who's just glad that Amethio is okay, and you can tell how much Amethio means to him. I was thinking to myself when I watched this, how are they not getting spied on right now? And sure enough, Kalse was spying on them, so alright then, guess I was onto something there. Her expression doesn't really give anything away though, and she doesn't say anything either, so I don't know what will happen next now that the explorers know Amethio is active again. Back aboard the Brave Olivine, Charcadet is all healed up and ready to go, but Liko runs into Roy and Dot, who tell her that they have some extra time before they can take off again, so they decide to go have some fun. Alt jumps in and says he's coming with, but it looks like it's the middle of the night, so they're not going anywhere just yet. The episode ends with a shot of Amethio leaving that island in the early hours of the morning, and our favorite anti-hero is back in action with renewed purpose. This episode is a weird one for me to discuss. It was definitely an important episode, like lots of necessary plot-heavy things happened, but it also wasn't that flashy or exciting in my opinion. What I mean by this is that nothing that happened in this episode really surprised me or especially moved me in any way. I enjoyed the episode, but I don't really have any strong feelings about it. So this leads me to my rating, and I'm giving this episode a 6.5 out of 10 rating. I thought it was good, but not great. Everything that happened made complete sense, and I'd even go as far as to say that it was a little predictable. Like, you could always connect the dots super easily from discovering where Amethio was, or his lack of motivation, to his inevitable change of heart after seeing Liko and Charcadet not giving up in their battle. It was solid stuff, but I just wasn't blown away by anything, that's all. My two quick discussion points that I wanted to bring up was that, first of all, I kept waiting for Ceruledge to use Bitter Blade and trigger Charcadet's Flash Fire ability. That did not happen, so I'm just going to assume that we'll see that in a future battle between the two. It does feel a little rushed to me that Charcadet has suddenly become so important, but we'll see how it goes from here. I don't know where Liko is finding an auspicious armor to evolve it into an Armor Rouge, but I'm sure that will happen someday. Also, I am very invested in this Explorers drama, and I can't wait to see how it continues from the inside. Kalse's very stoic cameo at the end of the episode makes me question her loyalty to Spinel, and I can definitely see Cervantes turning his back on his new boss. Amethio isn't a part of the group anymore, but for now, he's still going to try and do things on his own. At one point, I thought he was about to say that Zerk and Onya are explorers, but he's a member of the Rising Voltacklers. Now that would have been wild. Amethio's adventure on his own isn't getting off to the best of starts, as the next episode begins with a heavy storm. Ludlow is chilling out here, which I kinda love, and somehow he and Quagsire can sense that someone is in danger, so it's time for a form change, and it's already time for the Mighty G. While they go off to save the day, our heroes are stuck inside wishing they could have gone out and played today. Alt is even mega ready to hit the beach, which was nice to see him excited to do something for a change. While they wait for the storm to clear, we get another update to the opening theme now that Amethio has re-entered the story. I always thought this quick shot of Krabby on the beach was kinda strange, but now it makes sense that Amethio has filled that void. Speaking of the heir to the explorers, he's having a rough time out in the middle of the storm. He's getting close to an island, but his Corviknight can't hold out much longer. Luckily for him, help is on the way, and I love that even he did the thing by going, is it a yacht? A boat? No, it's the Mighty G! Everyone's favorite aquatic hero comes to the rescue by offering Amethio a ride to that island. Amethio agrees, recalling his Corviknight and hopping aboard the Sharpedo Express to safety. They take refuge inside a cave, and a running bit throughout this episode is that Amethio never quite remembers his savior's name, but Ludlow always has to do the Mighty G thing, which is amazing, of course. Amethio is already thinking about how to make his next move, but Mighty G tells him to slow down and not be reckless. Amethio doesn't listen and tries to run off, but he gets all of like 10 steps before nearly passing out from exhaustion. Although Mighty G himself is feeling the exertion from his extended form change, he knows what he must do and stays to help Amethio. He identifies his lack of proper nutrition as the problem and gives him a rice and curry set, which will help fill him up spectacularly, which may be Ludlow's greatest wordplay ever. With that, our hero takes his leave now that he has saved the day. He instantly starts slipping back into his Gramps form, but he checks on Amethio before actually leaving. He's sad because it's obvious Amethio doesn't know what he's doing with those ingredients. The Mighty G is back in action, and he asks Amethio if he can cook, and he's basically like, no, not really. All I can do is roast berries over a fire. And this was another Horizons specialty, because I instantly thought back to the scene from the last episode where Amethio is struggling to properly roast a berry over the campfire, and I thought, well, that's kind of strange. But now, obviously, they were just setting the table for this new plot point in this episode, which is that Amethio isn't well equipped to survive on his own. Kind of crazy to say that, given that he literally just spent an entire year on a deserted island, but hey, I'm liking where this character development is going, so I'll just look past that. We then get a ton of moments where Mighty G shows off his patented cooking techniques, and this was fantastic because not only is the Mighty G being the mightiest of Gs right now, but Amethio is actually learning too. The heroic PSAs and Amethio's growth, along with the repeated Mighty G poses, just fantastic stuff. The only thing that can stop us now is Ludlow's back giving out due to being in his Mighty G form for too long, but we must persevere because apparently Amethio is so helpless on his own that he can't even figure out how to dry his own clothes properly. More heroic home ec lessons ensue, and yes, I realize this is sounding repetitive at this point, but that's actually part of the humor. It's intentional, and I love it. Finally, the curry is ready, and Mighty G tries to escape again, but Amethio is like, oh, okay, well, I'm used to eating alone, so no big deal. This breaks the Mighty G's righteous heart, and it's time for one last superhero superpower, as the two sit down and share a meal together with their Pokemon. It's all so sweet and wholesome, and even during their conversation, they never directly talk about Rising Voltacklers and Explorers stuff. This really was all about Mighty G teaching Amethio how to get by on his own. There weren't really any ulterior motives going on by either character. I don't know if this newfound bond between the two will ever be revisited again, but it certainly left an impact on Amethio, who was uncharacteristically open and kind towards the Mighty G, even as he made his long-awaited exit after the storm finally cleared. I guess superheroes just have that effect on people, you know? Alright, we're already about halfway through the episode at this point, but we've dedicated the entire thing to Amethio's side of the story. Now let's hard shift our focus to the Rising Voltacklers' day out at the beach, which includes a wild Gholdengo already surfing the nearby waves. Dot still isn't a fan of this kind of thing, so she decides to go back to the airship. But not before reciting the tenets of the Assassin's Creed. First, stay your blade from the flesh of the innocent. Second, never swim in the ocean. She doesn't stay away from the beach for long though, as she winds up getting possessed by Gimmighoul again and drawn back out to the beach. This frustrates Dot since she feels like this always happens to her. They're then joined by Murdoch and Cap, who are ready to catch some gnarly waves, bro. And when the topic of Ludlow comes up, they just think he must be fishing somewhere and don't waste any more time thinking about it. Gimmighoul takes an interest in the surfing Gholdengo, and Dot notes that Gimmighoul must evolve into Gholdengo. The two ghost types have a face-to-face meeting, and Gimmighoul is in awe of its evolved form. Dot retreats back to her room once again, but Gimmighoul, for some reason, isn't leaving her alone. They get drawn out back to the beach once again, only to get angry when the spell wears off. She tries to barricade herself in her room this time, but even that doesn't work. But hey, where's Quaxwell? He's staring off into the ocean, because he's not interested in coins right now, only going surfing. Dot notices that look in his eyes, and that's that. Dot feels like she has to go surfing now. Gholdengo leads the way as everyone gets ready to catch some waves, and whoa, Gimmighoul somehow found its way into Dot's surfboard. She can't believe it would come all the way out to the ocean, but I love how excited Gimmighoul is to surf. Dot's empathetic nature gets the best of her, and she agrees to play with Gimmighoul just like she would for one of her own Pokemon. Since she has no surfing experience though, they almost immediately crash and burn. Gimmighoul actually does go overboard, but Dot is there to save the day. These two are quickly forming a tight connection, so I think we could all see where this was going by this point. The aforementioned gnarly waves have arrived, bro, so we get some sick shots of everyone hanging 10 and having a good time. Dot seems to be struggling a little bit, but I mean, in reality, she's doing amazingly well considering this is the first time in her life that she has ever gone surfing. They're no match for Gholdengo though, and seeing it in action gives Dot the epiphany that Gimmighoul must want to collect as many coins as possible so that it can evolve into Gholdengo one day. We then awkwardly cut to sunset after the waves have subsided, and Gholdengo rides off into the ocean. Everyone says goodbye while Dot stays by Gimmighoul's side. Nearby, Ludlow is recovering from his busy day. The kids run up to talk to him. Well, actually Dot doesn't. She's still talking to Gimmighoul. She asks how she can get it to stop controlling her, and then makes this kind of weird comparison to how she used to idolize Iono, and that inspired her to become a streamer too, just like how Gimmighoul is inspired by Gholdengo. Dot will help Gimmighoul reach its goal, and she offers it a spot on her team. Gimmighoul agrees, excitedly bashing its treasure chest into Dot's Pokeball, and here's the capture we were all waiting for, but maybe not necessarily the one we were expecting. Dot is just excited that her new friend doesn't have to control her anymore. I mean, she said that a lot this episode, and even does so once again when she explains her new capture to Molly. Of course, Dot and her Pokemon then immediately begin searching for coins again because, yep, they're under Gholdengo's spell once again. Her newest team member sits back all cocky and admires its handiwork, which I thought was a perfect way to end the episode. And yes, Gimmighoul did get added to the ending animation as well, so that's nice. I really like this episode. I mean, I figured I would, given that Mighty G was involved, but yeah, I just ended up enjoying this one a lot. I think kind of a lazy comparison you can make would be to say that this was just like one of those two-part episodes in Journeys, but those were made up of two half-baked storylines that just weren't good enough to take up an entire episode on their own. This one, however, continued to push forward the plot and felt meaningful the entire time. In another world, this just plays out like most episodes of the Pokemon anime where we switch back and forth between the A plot and the B plot throughout the episode. Instead, this time we just got the B plot in its entirety straight out of the gate before shifting our focus entirely to the A plot. It's a novel way of storytelling in the Pokemon anime, so that in itself deserves praise in my opinion. It made things feel fresh, and of course it made sense too, given that we had to let the storm pass before we could go out and enjoy a sunny day on the beach. Now for my favorite part, let's quantify my feelings. I'm giving this episode an 8 out of 10 rating. I've already talked at length about how much I enjoy the stuff with the Methio and the Mighty G. It was equal parts wholesome and humorous. The Gimmighoul storyline was great too, and I love that Dot was the one to catch it. If you had asked me to rank which of the four kids was going to catch this thing, I probably would have gone Roy, Alt, Liko, and then Dot as the least likely. As I always say, I love it when the anime subverts my expectations, and this capture certainly did just that. They did a lot of heavy lifting in this episode so that Dot catching Gimmighoul actually made sense, since before this, it would have felt pretty random for her to be the one to catch it. But now her team is up to 3, and I'm excited to see where we go from here. Next up is an alt-focused episode, which I am massively in favor of. I want to learn more about this guy and see him in action, so I'm looking forward to this one. We may even get to learn more about that mysterious dusk ball he has as well, so I'm all for the direction this seems to be going. Hopefully I should be able to upload a standalone review for it next weekend, but that brings me to my last topic for the video. With school about to start back up next month, my job is about to get a lot busier. I work in college sports, which includes a lot of weekend hours, and I just don't feasibly have enough time to consistently do weekly episode reviews the way things are. Add in a week-long trip to France that I'm taking at the end of this month, and yeah, I just don't really have any good answers for what I'm going to do going forward. A lot of people have suggested doing multi-episode reviews like once a month or so, but that's just not a good solution for me. I never want to just skim over episodes without properly reviewing them, and if I do multiple episodes at once, that just means I'm doing the same amount of work as if I were posting weekly episode reviews, but instead all in one package. So yeah, I don't know. Unless we come up with a good idea, I guess what I'm saying is, don't be surprised if I just don't have time to upload once the school year starts. And I want to be clear when I say this, I still have a passion for talking about the Pokemon anime, and I will be excitedly keeping up with each new episode. What I struggle with is trying to put in the necessary effort to do well on YouTube. I want the quality of these reviews to maintain a high level, and it's frustrating seeing some of the ways content creators need to put in more and more grind just to get the algorithm to like them, because that's kind of really all that matters nowadays. I hate that I have to title this video, "The Pokemon Anime Just Shocked Us," but I can't just title it, "Dot Catches Gimmighoul Pokemon Horizons Episode 105 Review" if I want this video to perform well. I've always considered creating content on YouTube to be kind of like playing a game, and that game just isn't as fun for me anymore as it used to be. A lot of YouTube's new monetization tactics also feel kind of aggressive and overbearing to me too, which I'm sure is something you guys don't need me to tell you about, with the recent additions of automatic mid-roll ads and more invasive ad placements making YouTube just less fun in general, in my opinion. Well, that was kind of a down note to end on. I figured I owed it to you all to share my honest thoughts, and anyone who made it this far into the video was probably going to watch until the end anyways. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.